Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Podcast. We're here with our man, Achilles Rain, to do our Week 14 recap and review. You ready to get into the Week 14 football season?
Oh yeah, man, we're getting close to the end, and it's starting to sink in. We're almost there.
Yeah, it is. It's getting close. All right. So we'll start out with Thursday night. Big game for you. The Los Angeles Rams pretty much dominated the New England Patriots. The game pretty much ended early, midway through that second quarter with that pick six from Cam Newton, and New England just couldn't garner enough offense to do anything there. I thought it was a pretty decent game. 24-3 was the final score. Cam Newton was 9 of 16 for 119 yards and an interception. Damian Harris, 11 carries, 50 yards. N'Keal Harry, 3 catches, 49 yards. Jared Goff was solid if unspectacular, 16 of 25, 137, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Cam Akers starting to get a bulk load of the carries, 29 for 171. And Tyler Higbee was the leading receiver with 2 catches for 34 yards. So what'd you make of this game on Thursday night?
Overall, I think it was a good game. I was a little concerned. I thought that it might be a little tighter than it actually turned out to be. One of the biggest concerns going into this game, I thought, was Bill Belichick's coaching scheme. I wasn't sure if he was going to put together the type of scheme that he did going up against the Rams in the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, both teams are drastically different, the Patriots more so. But we've seen that the Patriots have had their issues offensively over the last few weeks, yet they've still managed to win some games. So it was nice to see the fact that they could still stop that offense and prevent them from getting the win. So I think overall, everybody kind of assumed the Rams were the better team going in. A few people had concerns, but they got the job done. They got the W.
Yeah, pretty dominant performance defensive wise. Once again, they were just on point. But once they got up, there's just no way for that New England offense to really manufacture a way to score points. They need to be up front and ahead, or else they just totally have nothing to offer. Now, I was wondering, this probably ends the Patriots playoff run, but Rams-wise, there's 3 games to go. They got a sort of a freebie this week with the Jets and then Seattle and Arizona, 2 conference games. How important is it to you that the Rams win this division? Or do you think just getting in the playoffs and moving through? I don't know where home field, especially for a team who's playing in a new stadium without fans, really sits importance-wise for a playoff game or two.
Yeah, I don't think home field is as important. Obviously, you do want to be at home. I just don't think it's as important as it is in seasons prior to this. Simply because of that, you have that, no fans type of situation that I think it really adds a different feel for the game. I don't think it's super important for them to win home field advantage, but I think it'd be good for their psyche to win this division and at least get a home game. I don't think it counts for much, but I think that for their mental state and the way that they're going to play, I think that it's important.
Yeah. I don't know if they could get the 1 seed, but do you think there's any shot that the Rams could come away with a 1 seed? Or do you think that's probably a pipe dream?
I think it's just a little too out of reach right now, especially when you look at the opponents for the 2 top seeds in the NFC. I think that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they're not going to get it, which I'm okay with, but it'd still be a huge positive for the team in itself to, win the division, which I think is what the goal is right now.
Definitely. Okay. Anything else on this game you wanted to touch on? It was a pretty uneventful game, certainly after about, 25 minutes.
Yeah, the only thing was, we've talked about it in the last few weeks about the Rams rushing attack. You know, their defense gets a lot of the conversation when it comes to the media, but um, I want to talk on the Rams running backs. That whole three-headed monster running back by committee thing kind of died down a little bit over the last few weeks, and it seems like Cam Akers is the guy now. He's been getting the bulk of the carries, and he really showed up this last week.
Yeah. I would say if they can generate a rushing attack like this, it lessens a lot of pressure that Jared Goff has. Like we saw, he was okay this week, and they dominated the game, and it allows them to be okay if they can get a rushing attack like this.
Yeah, the defense is there. So as long as you can get a good running game and keep Goff from, as people say, golfing it, then I think you have a pretty good shot at winning games. This is probably the formula that they should follow going forward.
Definitely. Okay, we'll move on to your boys in the NFC West. The Arizona Cardinals finally put together a pretty solid game, 26-7 over the New York Giants. Kyler Murray looked much better than he has the last couple of weeks. 24 for 35, 244 yards and a touchdown. He also had 13 carries and 47 yards. Kenyon Drake had 23 carries, 80 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins had 9 catches, 136 yards. Daniel Jones came back and was not very good. 11 to 21, 127. Wayne Gallman, 12 carries for 57 yards. And Golden Tate had 1 catch for 39 yards. Sterling Shepard, 3 for 35 yards. I think this game was a little more of a blowout than I thought it would be. But Daniel Jones and that offense for the Giants was so bad, it didn't really give them much shot in this game. But a much wider margin than I thought. I thought the Giants would be a little stiffer competition, especially with Arizona coming across the country to play.
Yeah, I thought that Arizona would definitely get this win. This was obviously one of my picks going into the week. I expected them to have a little bounce back game, especially after the last few weeks, the way they've played. They haven't really looked like the Cardinals that we kind of got used to after that big, Hail Mary pass back against the Seattle Seahawks. But I thought this would be a good bounce back game for them. When I heard that Daniel Jones was actually going to play, I was a little more concerned about my pick. But he still didn't look 100% healthy. It looked like he probably should have sat out at least another week. I understand why they try to rush him back because they're literally in the thick of that division right now with Washington. So I understand why they rushed him back. I just think that he probably could have used one more week to just kind of get back to 100% because he didn't look great.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. They rushed him. He definitely did not look 100%. He wasn't moving all that great. I don't understand. I get it if it's like a Russell Wilson level type quarterback like that to, try to rush him back because the drop off from, Russell Wilson to whatever your backup is like huge. But really the drop off from a healthy Daniel Jones to a healthy Colt McCoy is not quite as big a gap. So why do you think the Giants decided to push him back before he was really ready to go? Because you saw it because they pulled him and ended up putting McCoy back in the game anyway.
Well, I think the drop off is actually significant, especially after, over the last few weeks. We've definitely seen Jones kind of come into his own. He's been a threat both on the ground and over the air. He's been getting a good amount of passing yards, even though he doesn't have a lot of weapons out there. And his running game, they pretty much kind of signed people off the street and guys that weren't really doing much anymore. Yet, they're still making it work because he's mixing in a few rushes himself. He's pretty mobile for a quarterback. And we don't really think about him as a mobile quarterback, but he gets out of the pocket and he can scramble and get a few yards, which is probably one of the reasons why I think that they felt like they had a better shot at winning the next few games with him as opposed to having McCoy out there, which makes sense to me. I think that he's a lot better than McCoy is, but that's just my personal feelings.
Yeah, I understand. You know, if it was he uses his legs so much, he's such a moving out of the pocket, making throws. He utilizes the running game. So something like a hamstring injury, is going to affect him more than, say like a statuesque Tom Brady or a Drew Brees, someone who's just going to sit in that pocket. And that's why I didn't quite understand, if he's not 100% healthy and he's not going to be able to move as well, essentially you take probably his best weapon is, his movement outside the pocket and getting outside the pocket. And you got away with Colt McCoy in versus Seattle. I'm not any Colt McCoy lover here, but it just seemed like maybe let Colt go one more game, see if you can sort of fake your way into another win, and let Daniel Jones have another week to get healthy. Because now you bring up questions. You played him, and now can he get healthy for the next week game? It seems like you compiled your problem by rushing him back this week.
Yeah, I just think that maybe they might have gotten a little overconfident after that win against Seattle, and they figured, Arizona not as good as Seattle. Maybe we could probably beat them too, even with a hobbled quarterback. I just think that they probably rushed him too soon. I still think that division is up for grabs regardless, even if you would have lost this game with Colt McCoy on there, but you would have given your quarterback another week to get fully healthy. So I think they rushed the gun a little bit, but I see where they came from.
Yeah. I thought the Giants abandoned the run a little too early here. Only 12 carries for Gallman. He had been going well for the last couple games. I know they got behind, but Gallman still had pretty good yard per carry averages. Just thought they sort of lost their way offensively. I mean, they haven't been great offensively all year long. So I just a little stunned. What do you make of the Cardinals game here? You think they get back on track, or just a bit of a, they're going to be, one game hot, one game cold the rest of the year?
I think with them, a lot of it's going to have to do with matchups going forward. They definitely needed this particular type of game just to kind of get their confidence back, because over the last few weeks, they were playing pretty bad, both offensively and defensively. But it was a lot more evident offensively with Kyler Murray struggling to just get out of the pocket and get some of those rushing yards that he's been getting throughout the season. But I think with them going forward, it's going to be dependent on the matchup, and they're still a pretty good team. I think they're good enough to sneak in maybe with that last wild card spot.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a little bit of the pressure is now off of them playoff-wise with Minnesota losing and San Francisco losing. They really don't have, the Bears did win, but, that's their three that are behind the Bears, Niners, Vikings. So it looks like no matter really how bad they finish, as long as they can get a win or two, they will probably be the last team in the playoffs. So maybe that helps them improve to close out the season here.
Yeah, they definitely have a really good shot.
All right, we'll move on to our next game. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos 32, Carolina Panthers 27 here. Drew Lock, probably his best game, I thought. Looked commanding behind huddle. Didn't have too many really bad plays. 21 to 27, 284 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon, 13 carries for 68 yards. Jerry Jeudy had 2 for 42. Hamler had 2 for 86 and a touchdown. On the Panthers side, Bridgewater 30 of 40 for 283. Mike Davis 11 of 51, 2 touchdowns. Robbie Anderson 8 for 84. So this Broncos team continues to be a little plucky. They're probably the plucky team that is finishing out the season pretty strong. Drew Lock's probably best game. What'd you make of this one?
Yeah, I thought it was a little entertaining watching this score, especially when I started looking at the stats for this game. I believe it was last week where you pretty much gave what's his name, Locke, the Dunzo. I think as of last week you were pretty much done with him already, and then he comes out and he has probably his most efficient game ever and throws for 4 touchdowns. Uh, good for him. I still don't think that he's as good as he looked this week. It's probably just a combination of that defense playing really well and giving him a confidence boost. I think that the biggest storyline here is, that Denver defense is really started to make a name for itself, even with some key players being out. But as far as it's concerned, neither team's really going very far, especially as we get closer to the end of the season. But, it's definitely a nice confidence boost, to hopefully kind of motivate them to keep getting better.
Yeah, I continue to be impressed with the Denver defense and how hard it plays, and also the weapons the Denver Broncos offense has. I think maybe next week we're going to get into some quarterback talk for each team because the last couple years there hasn't been a lot of sort of open spots for quarterbacks, which is why you get like Jameis Winston with the Saints playing third string and Cam playing for like no money in the Patriots and stuff like that. But I think there could be a lot of spots open up in this upcoming year next season. And I think this Denver Broncos, whoever can sort of man this ship has some really nice weapons on offense, and that defense just looks really good. I don't think the Broncos are all that far off from being a sort of mid-tier contender here in the sort of Indianapolis, Tennessee, Cleveland category.
Yeah, they've got a really solid running game. They've got obviously a really good defense. You expect certain guys to come back healthy next season, which will only make it better. And if they can get some consistent play at the quarterback position, I think that they're pretty much set. They've got a really good running back. One of them's banged up and is probably going to be suspended for this next game, but we'll get into that next Thursday. But they've got a nice duo of running backs and some skill at the wide receiver position. I think the biggest flaw with that team has been so far this season the lack of consistent quarterback play. Which if they can get Locke playing the way he did, this last week, then they're going to be in pretty good shape going forward.
Yeah, and this doesn't even take into account Cortland Sutton, who's probably the Broncos' best receiver. Hasn't even really played this year. He's been pretty much out all year long with injury. I wanted to shift it to Carolina. They seem to be fading away down the stretch here. I know Christian McCaffrey has not played and starting, I think, to take a bit of a toll on them. I haven't been in love with the way Teddy Bridgewater has played since he missed that game hurt. And this defense continues to be pretty porous. What are you making of Carolina as they close out the season? We were really impressed with them early on, but I think they're sort of fading away here.
Yeah, I mean, they started off the season pretty hot, and they had a few hiccups here and there. There was a point in time when I thought that they could possibly, make a run for the division, not necessarily win it, but at least, make it tough for the division leaders. But over the last few weeks, their play has really fallen off, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you gave that timeline. I think it happened right after he came back from that injury. He just hasn't quite looked the same, and he's had a few games when he's played well, but the consistency just isn't quite there anymore. I don't know if he's still not 100%. Maybe he's still ailing a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I still like the team going forward. I just, this is definitely not their season.
Yeah. We'll do a little quarterback question here. A lot of quarterbacks in this draft, pretty high-rated quarterbacks here. You spent okay amount of money on Teddy Bridgewater, but if you were Carolina, would you ponder drafting one of these quarterbacks in the first round here?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, if you get a good enough pick and you feel a guy that, you feel has got something in the tank, something he can prove. I mean, they're not going to get the number one overall pick, but there's a lot of solid quarterbacks coming into the draft. And even some free agents during the offseason that I don't necessarily think you need to go young. You could always go with a more of a veteran presence. You're going to get McCaffrey, back 100% for next season. And they've had some guys step up at the wide receiver position. So a lot of it's going to have to do with improving that defense a little bit more. I think that right now they're, on the lower end of the kind of mid-range type of defenses. They're not that good, but they're also not horrible. They can show up on any given week. So I think that a lot of it's going to have to do with, whether they want to step away from Teddy going forward. But I still think he's got stuff left. I don't know. I think that he's probably not 100%.
Yeah. All right. Last question on this game. Christian McCaffrey was sort of questionable leading up to it. I assume that means he might be ready next week. Would you even bother bringing him back, or do you sort of pack him in ice and say, we'll be ready next year?
Yeah, I think that you pretty much shelf him for the rest of the season. I don't think there's any chance of you making the playoffs right now, especially not with the type of record you hold. So I think that you're best off to just kind of, put your prized possessions away in the trophy case and just, keep them dust free till next season starts.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the Tennessee Titans 31, Jacksonville Jaguars 10. Ryan Tannehill 19 to 24, 212, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry 26 for 215 and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown 7 for 112. Gardner Minshew 18 for 31, 178 and a touchdown. Mike Glennon 13 for 23, 85 yards and an interception. I'm going to continue my shout outs of James Robinson, 12 for 67, becomes the fastest undrafted rookie to rush for 1,000 yards in a season. Keenan Cole, 7 for 67 and a touchdown. So bad team versus good team. Not much analysis here. They finally put Gardner Minshew back in. I don't know why they weren't doing it before. I mean, he's a much better quarterback, and it's not like they're going to win games even with him in there. But what'd you make of Tennessee's performance this week?
I think this is exactly what the doctor ordered. They really needed one of these games. I was a little concerned going in just with it being a divisional opponent. You never quite know what's going to happen. And we said it last week. If Tennessee's offense doesn't show up, their defense isn't good enough to keep them in games. Their defense is bad, and they can actually cost them games if that offense isn't putting up any numbers. Now, thankfully for them, Derrick Henry came out and had a monster of a game, and they didn't really need Tannehill to do much, but he did enough to just, kind of keep the ball moving and keep the sticks moving. And they did exactly what they're supposed to. They're supposed to beat them, and they did, and it was decisive, and it was a good win for them.
Yeah. You think Tennessee will go on to win the division? They closed Detroit, Green Bay, Houston. I expect 2 wins out of that for sure, and probably cinch up this division here.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see them winning all 3, but for sure, definitely have them winning 2. And if they win those 2, that race is tight. So they're a lot of it's gonna depend on who the Colts are gonna be facing, and it's gonna be a tight race. But they have to win out. If they win out, I think that they right now hold the keys to their own future. So the rules of the game right now are just come in, play good football, run the ball with Derrick Henry, try to limit mistakes on defense, and win some games.
Yeah. All right. We'll go with probably one of the most entertaining games on Sunday. Kansas City Chiefs 33, Miami Dolphins 27. Patrick Mahomes 24 for 34, 393, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Clyde Edwards-Helaire continues to sort of disappoint, 16 for 32. Kelsey 8 for 136 and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill 3 for 79 and a touchdown, and 1 carry for 32 yards and a touchdown. Tua Tagovailoa 28 for 48, 316, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also sadly was the leading rusher because the Miami Dolphins were down to number 6 on their running back depth chart. So Tua had 6 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown. Lynn Bowden, 7 catches for 82 yards. They were also pretty far down on the depth chart in receiver-wise because Devontae Parker left injured. So I thought it was a tough showing by the Dolphins. Played well, fought as well as they could, but just sort of outgunned by this Chiefs team who did not look as sharp, but this probably speaks how good the Chiefs are by literally racking up about 500 yards of offense and not playing all that great.
Yeah, the Chiefs have. I don't want to say that they've shown flaws in their game because to me they're still the number 1 team in the NFL, but they definitely show little chinks in their armor. And that has to be defensively. It's got to be a little bit concerning if you're a Chiefs fan, that you let the Dolphins really hang in there because they had a shot to at least get close. There was 2 possession game, like with a minute left or so, and the Dolphins drove down. And if they would have got a touchdown, probably would have been a lot more interesting. But they ended up kicking that field goal, which, by the way, Lux Nova was really upset about because it cost her some pennies. But we'll talk about that on Thursday. But either way, it was a good win for the Chiefs against a really gritty, Dolphins team, and the Chiefs really needed it, especially with what happened with the Saints. So it was good for them.
Yeah. Just sort of Dolphins wise, they played well, but with the Ravens win here, that last playoff spot, it's getting a little tight and a little close here. The Dolphins are closing New England, Las Vegas, and Buffalo. They probably can lose one of those games, but they definitely need to get to at least 2 of those. So as much as I think we've enjoyed watching the Dolphins this year, are they going to get in the playoffs here with the Ravens right there? I don't think the Ravens can afford to lose any games, but they're definitely the more experienced team in sort of closing a season like this.
Yeah, I think that if you're a Dolphins fan, you're really proud of your team and the way they performed this season. But they're probably done. And I think that not done because they're bad, done because of just the way the record sits. But I just can't see them really winning, the last 3 games. And I have a hard time thinking that they can win 2 of those games. It's against tough teams and some divisional opponents. But maybe they've got some magic left in them. I don't know. It's just going to be tough for them. Just there's a few games that I'm sure they wish they could have had back. Like maybe that Denver game when
the Denver game's going to be the one that ends up probably really putting pressure whether they get in the playoffs or not.
Yeah, because offensively Denver really wasn't playing well, and Miami's defense was playing pretty good, at least points per games wise. They were playing pretty good at that point. And they came out and they pretty much laid a dud and let Denver get that W. So I think that was probably going to come back and haunt them a little bit. But, as a Dolphins fan, I think that you sit back and you look at the improvement the team made and you think about, the pieces you have in place for the future. And I think you get excited and you just kind of move on.
Yeah. The only saving grace is maybe that Buffalo game in week 17 might not matter. So especially without a bye, if Buffalo gets that 2 seed, I think they might pack it in and use that week as a extra bye. Now, it also could backfire the other way. Like if the Chiefs lose another game, then Buffalo's sitting in that spot and looking at a 1 seed and maybe a bye. So if that's the case, then they're going to go full bore into that game because a 1 seed, only having to play 2 home playoff games in Buffalo. I think that might lean me towards Buffalo being a favorite if they can grab a 1 seed like that. So really hard to tell what that week 17 game versus Buffalo for Miami is going to mean.
Oh, yeah, definitely. These last few weeks are definitely going to be a big game changer for a lot of teams in a lot of divisions. So I'm looking forward to these last few weeks.
All right, we'll move on to the one bet I made that seemed halfway successful. And I tried to get you to I tried to get our friend to talk me out of it. Dallas Cowboys 30, Cincinnati Bengals 7. Andy Dalton returned to Cincinnati 16 for 23, 185, 2 touchdowns. Zeke Elliott continues to be rather mundane as a running back. 12 for 48. Tony Pollard had 11 for 39. Amari Cooper 4 for 51 and a touchdown. Brandon Allen, 27 to 36, 217 and a touchdown. Simji P. Ryan, 10 for 32. AJ Green, 6 for 62 and a touchdown. The Bengals were beyond awful in this game. Once again, they decided to throw the ball 38 times with a bunch of bad quarterbacks. And it sort of cost them. Dallas's defense almost looked functionally okay here. The offense did not make mistakes. What'd you make of this game, other than it was awful?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't one of the most entertaining games to watch, but Was really happy for Dallas. You know, they definitely needed something like this. I thought it'd probably be a little bit tighter, you know, being that neither team is really that good. But we did mention the fact that Dallas had a more of a better veteran presence. They had guys that have been there before. I even mentioned the Big Red Pistol, formerly known as the Big Red Rifle. Um, you know, at some point he was a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, so there's something to be said about that. So I just think that based off the type of players that they currently have, even with all the injuries, I thought that Dallas had better players and they'd probably come out ahead. But this was pretty one-sided. I'm happy for all the Dallas fans. They needed something to feel good about, and I'm sure that they'll take this win.
Yeah. They still are in the playoff hunt as long as the Eagles are, with the Giants losing, and we'll get to the Washington football team and maybe some issues behind center. But so, I mean, they're still playing for things. I'm a little curious if they can maybe string together a win or two and make this interesting in the NFC East.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on who they're going to play. I don't see them beating anybody in the top five of the conference. So they just really got to hope that they either catch some teams on a bad week or that they just play out of their minds, because it's going to be tough for them to get in, even though that division is pretty tight. I still think that the Giants and Washington are playing really good, and Philadelphia seems to really have turned on a switch. So it's going to be tough for Dallas.
Yeah, it's still half in their hands. They close with the Niners, Eagles, and Giants to close out the season there.
Yeah, so two divisional opponents and then a rival. So it's going to be pretty tough. But I know there's one particular Cowboy fan out there, Mr. Fish, who probably just wants them to lose, and he's probably just upset that if they won that last game, he just saw the draft pick position moving down, and he wasn't too happy about it.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys are bad, but the Bengals are much worse. I guess I can try to get you to say something about the Bengals side of things. If you can come up with something, that would be good to fill some content here.
The only thing I really got to say about the Bengals is the future is bright. You know, your young quarterback who unfortunately got run into the ground by your coach, he showed a lot of signs and showed a lot of promise, and he put up some big numbers. He was on pace to break all kinds of rookie records. So if you can get him back at even close to the point that he was this season, he's only going to be that much better. Your team's only going to be that much better.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to not that much better of a game, but Houston Texans 7, Chicago Bears 36, Watson 21 of 30, 219, and a touchdown. No one really ran for anything. Chad Hansen had 7 for 56. The Texans were basically just atrocious. But the Bears, a little plucky here. Mitch Trubisky, 24 for 33, 267, 3 touchdowns. David Montgomery continues his second half resurgence, 11 carries, 113 yards and a touchdown. Allen Robinson, 9 catches, 123 yards and a touchdown. So I'm not quite sure we had a Bears high-scoring blowout in the works here, but that's how it turned out. What'd you make of this?
To me, this was really surprising. I thought that after last week's performance, Houston would come out really pumped up and kind of, give it to this Bears team that's kind of been struggling as of late. Now, I did hear this morning on Sports Talk that somehow it got overlooked that Mitch Trubisky was undefeated when he got benched. Is that true?
Yes, it was true.
This is crazy to me because even I believe I was one of those people that was saying that I thought Foles was better than Trubisky. But obviously not. He came back and now all of a sudden they're playing well again. To me, he's got a little bit of Tebow in him, kind of, probably not going to dazzle you with his stats or with his arm, but he finds a way to win, and apparently that's what he does. I was really blown away when I heard that stat this morning, but good for them. They came out and they played really tough, and I'm sure they really enjoyed this win because they needed to win. It had been a while since they had played this well. I believe they had what was it, 7 sacks this game,
Yeah.
which was the most that they've had in a long time. So good for them. You know, it was a big win.
Yeah. This makes me hate Matt Nagy even more. He came out with a game plan that actually featured Mitch Trubisky's skill set where he was rolling out and making passes. Why this wasn't done, I don't know, 2 years ago when you know exactly what Trubisky is. He's a little bit like Daniel Jones. He can move around and he likes to roll out and throw off rollouts. I know it cuts off half your field and you can't run your little precious West Coast offense, but you know, you don't have Patrick Mahomes behind center. You have to make adjustments. And the decision to bench Trubisky and go with Nick Foles, who literally has been good for 6 weeks of his entire NFL football career,
And he's made a fortune off of it.
just drives me nuts. I just don't understand. They could be more in the playoff race, I think, if they hadn't have given up on Trubisky so quickly. I'm not dumb. I can watch. He has a limited skill set, but when you do stuff like they did this week and feature what he does well, the offense can move a little bit, and then the defense starts playing much better and to their capabilities. Now, that being said, the Houston Texans were possibly beyond atrocious, and they quit on this game pretty quickly. So just a really bad showing by the Texans. And I don't know, after the season, we're going to have to do a free Deshaun Watson movement because that man's career is going to rot away into a pit of hell being on that god-awful Texans team.
Yeah, they definitely need to do something about that offensive line. I read some stat today where if he's sacked once or less in a game, he's 12-0. And anytime he's gotten sacked more than twice, I believe he's like 16-22, some crazy number like that.
They did do something about it. The Dolphins have their draft picks because they traded for the Dolphins left tackle last year.
Yeah, how did that work out for them? And you know, they made I don't want to call them bonehead mistakes, but you know, they let Hopkins go and they brought in Brandon Cooks to replace him. They were a solid team already, and they made too many moves. I think that they tried a little too hard to get better, and they actually ended up getting worse.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to our next game. I'm going to have another coaching rant here. The Minnesota Vikings 14, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26, Kirk Cousins 24, 37, 225 and a touchdown. Delvin Cook 22 for 102 and a touchdown. Adam Thielen 3 for 39. Tom Brady was 15 to 23, 196, 2 touchdowns. Ronald Jones 18 for 80 and a touchdown. Mike Evans 3 for 56. So I watched this game. I grew quite angry, possibly because I had a wager on the Minnesota Vikings, who started out hot, and then your friend, Coach Zimmer, for some reason, after a missed extra point from Dan Bailey, continues to trot out Dan Bailey to kick field goals over and over and over again. And after last week's disaster where he couldn't kick any field goals, to the point in overtime where they gave Dalvin Cook 10 extra carries so they could get down to the 5-yard line so he wouldn't miss a kick. They continue to use Dan Bailey and essentially cost themselves the game, and certainly my cover here for sure. But I just thought both teams were pretty awful in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad performance by both teams, but one of them had to come out on top. And unfortunately for the Vikings, their field goal kicker Dan Bailey really made it hard for them to even keep it close. I thought that it would have been an entirely different game if he hadn't missed those 10 points that he missed out on, because they weren't down by much at halftime. So this could have been a different type of.
We can also get in on the Hail Mary pass interference at the end of halftime that gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a free field goal. Since when do we start calling pass interference on random Hail Marys?
You know, it depends. Sometimes we call them superstar calls, and that looked like what it was. It looks, I don't want to say it's fixed because it's not fixed, but certain plays just seem like they're fixed because of who the opposing player is. But overall, it's just a poor coaching decision and a bad performance by certain players. And when you don't have an entire team, as a cohesive unit playing well, you're not going to beat the teams that are winning their divisions. And even though the Bucks aren't winning their division, they're still a top team. They've got a lot of talent with a lot of big names. We've said it plenty of times throughout the season. So if you want to beat Tampa Bay, you got to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves.
Yeah. I told you, was it Thursday that I talked about everybody's going to fall back in love with this Tampa Bay team, but I watched them again, and there's a lot missing here, but the schedule, they close Atlanta, Detroit, Atlanta. So, I find it very difficult that they will lose any of those games. So, essentially they're going to get their 11 wins, but of teams in the playoffs, I do not trust. This would be very high on the list.
Yeah, to me, see, and it's not that I don't trust them. I just think that they haven't had as much time together to really mesh as a championship type unit. Uh, Obviously, the Patriots, when Tom Brady was with the Patriots, they were together forever. He got drafted by them, and he played his entire career basically there until this last season. So there's something to be said about continuity, and they're just getting started in Tampa Bay, but they seem to be ready to build a championship team. I think that the coach situation, I think there's a little drama between the coach and the quarterback right now, and that might be playing into it. But
I don't think Bruce is back next year.
I don't think so either. I think that they're going to have to make a decision. Do they want to try and win a championship with Brady while they still can, or do they want to keep Coach Bruce Arians? And I think the decision is pretty easy for that franchise. Not necessarily that that's a route that I would go, but it's the most logical choice. You go with the GOAT and you try to go for a championship now.
Yeah. Of teams I don't trust in the playoffs, it might be Washington if Dwayne Haskins is their quarterback, and the Bucks would fall just underneath there.
Yeah, to me, the Bucks are slightly above where I would have a team like the Browns, but it's still a team that I don't fully trust. Just a team that I also wouldn't want to play.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the Indianapolis Colts. 44, Las Vegas Raiders 27. I luckily avoided taking the Raiders this week. I talked myself out of it as they continue their very porous defense. They fired their defensive coordinator. Some say in the actual game.
I thought I saw him packing his bags halfway through the game, so that's possibly a true rumor.
Yeah. Phillip Rivers, 19 of 28, 244, 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor is starting to find a groove and find his rhythm here. This Colts running game really starting to look really good. 20 for 152 touchdowns. Naheem Hines had 7 for 58. T.Y. Hilton, 5 for 86 and 2 touchdowns. Derek Carr, 31 of 45, 316, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Josh Jacobs, 13 for 49. Nelson Aguilar, 5 for 100 and a touchdown. Darren Waller, 7 for 75. I think this pretty much puts a stake in the Raiders season. I think we can put them on the Dunzo list, but this Colts team, where are we thinking here? I'm really impressed by the way this running game is really starting to grind up yards here. And I think this could be a pretty scary team in the playoffs.
I think they're a scary team already, and I think that a lot of it has to do with I've seen this running game steadily improve as the season has progressed. But I think that what really makes them scary now is the reemergence of T.Y. Hilton. He seems to really have turned it back on again towards the second half of the season. Over the last few weeks, he's been pretty explosive. He's been breaking away from the defenders, getting a lot of separation, which he wasn't doing so much in the first few couple of weeks. I don't know if he was banged up early on or what it was, but he really seems to have turned into next gear. So I'm really impressed with the team as a whole and that defense, even though it's shown lapses here and there. I still think they're a pretty impressive unit, and they can shut down just about anybody on any given night.
Yeah, definitely. Raiders-wise, are they on your Dunzo list now?
Listen, the Raiders were on my I don't know who they are list, and then they played the Chiefs tough, and I put them on my yeah they're a tough team list, and they started playing horrible, so I put them on my Dunzo list after that, and I'm glad that I put them there. This last week, I thought that they might. I thought this week they'd probably play better simply because I wasn't taking them anymore. But I'm glad that they proved me right that they really aren't that good. I think that they've given up 30 plus points in 8 games this season, where last season I think it was only 5. So that defense definitely has some issues. They got some cleaning up to do, but uh, they do have some really nice weapons. Just like at the tight end position, Brandon Jacobs seems to be a pretty good back. So I still wouldn't give up completely yet, but I think the likelihood of them going anywhere is pretty low.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I'm going to need 8 minutes of analysis on this next game, so be ready. New York Jets 3, Seattle Seahawks 40. Sam Darnold 14 of 26, 132. Frank Gore 8 of 23. Brandon Berrios 3 for 49. I don't know why I'm reading any stats from the Jets. They didn't do anything. Russell Wilson 21 of 27, 206, 4 touchdowns, interception. Our boy Geno Smith into the game. How exciting, a Geno Smith sighting. 4 of 5, 33 yards. Chris Carson 12 of 76 and a touchdown. Carlos Hyde 15 of 66. DK Metcalf 6 of 61 and a touchdown. I don't really know how to even bring this up. Snooze fest of a game. Seattle got it done. Jets suck.
Yeah, I mean that's really all there is to it, and I hate to be so blunt about it. I thought that the Jets might give them a little bit of a tougher game this week, especially over the last few weeks. They seem to have improved, but still, following their plan of going after that number 1 overall pick. Um, but yeah, they definitely didn't even show up this week, which was not surprising, against the Seattle type offense. But I'm still getting this. They've got a lot of firecrackers on that team, and I think that if they really wanted to play hard, I think they could play a lot better. More to the tune of what they did against the Raiders. But I just want to talk about what's his name, Marcus May, I think the defensive back for the Jets.
Yeah.
That interception he got when he was covering Metcalf, that was a beautiful interception, man. That was
Yeah,
a nice
it
play.
was really nice.
But yeah, I mean, the Jets they're focused on the draft right now, and Seattle's focused on trying to make a playoff run. So they're just on completely different stages right now, and this is why you have this type of score.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we'll move on. Washington football team 23, San Francisco 49ers. Pretty much, I think, officially ends their season here. 15. Alex Smith, 8 of 19, 57 yards and an interception. Dwayne Haskins came in because Alex Smith's legs started to get weird, which is a little scary here. 7 of 12, 51 yards. J.D. McKissick, 11 for 68. Peyton Barber, 12 for 37. Logan Thomas, 6 for 43. The San Francisco 49ers, Nick Mullins, 25 of 45, 260. Mostert, 14 for 65. Jeff Wilson Jr., 11 for 31 and a touchdown. Ayuk had 10 catches for 119 yards. Good win by Washington. Defense looked really, really strong. But I think the thing is here, I don't know if Alex is going to come back. He didn't look right the whole game. And then he left, and you started to get word that his leg was getting weird. What do you make of this situation now on offense with Washington? Gibson's also got the turf toe problem, so it's going to be probably slow getting back for him as well.
Yeah, offensively, I think that's where Washington's issues have pretty much lied all season long. Really early in the season, we all pretty much got on the that Washington defensive front. Their front seven were pretty tough. They were getting after the quarterback. Then they had a few injuries that caused them to slow down a little bit. They had a few players get healthy again, and it seems like they're back to their old ways. Chase Young has been really impressive this season, and I think that's probably the biggest storyline of this particular game. He impacted that game in so many different ways, and that's probably why his team won the game because, like you said, Alex Smith getting hurt was a huge bummer. And Gibson still being out with that turf toe, that's also going to hurt him a lot. I don't know how much of a digression it is to go with Haskins, but he seemed to be formidable in that game and did enough to help them win. So luckily for them, they're in the NFC East, and I think that they still have a good shot at possibly sticking around long enough till their players get healthy and maybe they can have a little run or something.
All right. So do you still put them as a favorite here to get in the playoffs, or are you looking more at Philly or Dallas or the Giants?
It's so weird. Early on in the season, we were both on Philly. We both thought that Philly, this was their year to turn back around to that championship caliber team that we've known them to have. A lot of people were on the Cowboys bandwagon. They thought, with the big weapons with Ezekiel Elliott and their quarterback situation, they thought that they were going to be the ones to beat the East. And then Washington came out and they played really good defense, and they really started to get the talk on their side. Then we had a couple of weeks where the Giants started playing better. Right now, I don't really know. I can't really trust any of these teams. I think that they've been up and down too many times throughout the season, so I can't really put much confidence in either one of them. But as good as Washington's defense is, I think that Philadelphia has just as good of a pass rush. Probably not as good, but close enough. And they seem to have some life again on offense. So if I had to pick now, if you forced me to pick right now, I'd probably say that I'm leaning more towards Philadelphia.
Yeah, they play Seattle this week, Carolina next week, and then close with the Eagles. Probably, my guess would be for that division there. But I don't have much hope in that Seattle game. I think they're really going to need that Carolina game in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the case. And if that's how it works out for them, then that last week 17 game is going to be huge.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to said Philadelphia Eagles with a big win versus the New Orleans Saints, 24-21 for the Eagles. Taysom Hill was 28 of 38, 291 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Kamara had 11 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. Michael Thomas, 8 for 84. Jalen Hurts, 17 of 31, 67, and a touchdown. Sanders, 14 for 115, 2 touchdowns. Hurts, 18 for 106. Rieger had 2 catches for 46 yards. The Eagles played really hard, but more than anything, when I watched this game, Saints just came out really flat in that first half and couldn't quite make up for what they did in the first half in the second half.
Yeah, to me, when I was watching this game, to me, it just looked like the Saints just completely overlooked the Eagles. And, the Eagles used that spark with having Hurts in there to really kind of give them a boost. And they ran away with that game. I mean, they pounded the rock pretty much all game long, as evident by the amount of rushing yards that they got. I thought that Hurts did pretty good overall. He didn't make a lot of mistakes. He did enough to help them win the game. But a lot of it to me had to do with the fact that this New Orleans Saints team just didn't show up. And as I mentioned last week, I don't know how confident I feel with New Orleans until Drew Brees comes back. If Drew Brees was healthy, then I wouldn't make much of this game. But I think that it sheds some light when you can get a pass rush, past that offensive line in New Orleans and get some pressure on the quarterback and Taysom Hill. I think that you're going to run into these type of issues. He's not the type of guy who's going to be able to lead you back, make big comebacks. But if you're ahead, he can manage the game and control the clock enough to get you a win. I just think that they're really in need of Drew Brees right now.
Yeah, he might come back this week versus the Chiefs, but that's sort of up in the air. It depends probably how much they want that 1 seed. With Green Bay's schedule, though, I don't really see Green Bay losing very much to close the season. But we'll get into Green Bay here. Green Bay 31, Detroit Lions 24. Pretty easy performance for Green Bay. 26 for 33, 293 touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones, 15 for 69. Devontae Adams, 7 for 115. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 6 for 85 and a touchdown. Matthew Stafford, 24 for 34, 244 and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift back was 7 for 24 and a touchdown. Danny Amendola, 6 for 66. The Lions, as they always do, sort of pack on yards and points, but are never really in the game. Packers cruise pretty easy here. What'd you make of this Packers performance? That offense still looks probably to be, other than the Chiefs, one of the best in the NFL.
Yeah, we've said it several times throughout the season that Devontae Adams to Aaron Rodgers connection is really scary and dangerous. And it was pretty obvious if you watched any part of that game. A short connection with them can easily turn into a long touchdown. They're a really explosive offense. The issue with them has always been that defense, but they bring enough horsepower on offense to keep themselves in games. Kind of like a Seattle Seahawks offense. They bring enough firepower to make up for the lack of defense. I still think that Green Bay's defense is slightly better than Seattle's, though. Yeah,
definitely. We'll see when Green Bay comes up against a rushing attack in the Titans. I believe that's in 2 weeks. That should be an interesting styles matchup, considering the Titans can't defend the pass and the Packers can't defend the run.
Yeah, but the interesting stat is the Packers, I believe, this is, the 9th time, I believe, that they've scored over 30 points and had 0 giveaways. So that's a really good stat to have. It bodes well for your team going forward.
Yeah. Are your Packers your favorite in the NFC East, or you think one of those West teams out there?
I'm sorry?
The Packers, favorite in the NFC.
I think that right now they have to be. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's, like I said, no Drew Brees in New Orleans. Otherwise, I'd still have the Saints as my favorite there. Early on the season, it was definitely Seattle, but that defense, man, as good as Adams has been, I'm still not sold. I know that they played really well this last week, but that was against the Jets. So until they can do it against a really good team, I'm not sold. The Packers are definitely first for me in the NFC.
All right. We'll move on to a game that you knew was going to go down to the last possession. Atlanta Falcons 17, Los Angeles Chargers 20. Herbert 36 of 44, 243, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Eckler 15 for 79. He also had 9 catches for 67 yards. Keenan Allen 9 for 52 and a touchdown. Ridley 8 for 124 and a touchdown. Matt Ryan, 21 to 32, 224, touchdown, but 3 interceptions and a couple crushing ones in there. But Anthony Lynn's clock management at the end of the half and such somehow managed to keep everyone in the game. And I think if you wrote a script, this would exactly be how this game probably played out.
Yeah, I mean, this has been both of these teams' MO pretty much throughout the whole season. They can stay, pretty tight within games that are winnable for them, but they still somehow find a way to lose. And this has just been them. Like you said, we've had a few instances where we've had the opportunity to bet on these games, and either we're let down or we just completely avoid it because we know a letdown's pretty much just around the corner. The Chargers got the win, but I don't think that it's as much because both teams look pretty bad. And I'll get into the whole Anthony Lynn situation a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we'll move on past that game and move into the last 2 games on the slate, and probably the 2 biggest games of the week. Steelers 15, Buffalo Bills 26. Ben Roethlisberger 21 to 37. 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of those a crushing one at the end of the half for a pick 6. Connor, 10 of 18. This Steelers running game continues to be a big issue. Juju Smith-Schuster, 6 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen, 24 of 43, 238, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was on fire in the second half. Zach Moss, 13 for 43. Devin Singletary, 7 for 32. Josh Allen, 6 for 28. So they're piecing together a little bit of a running game there. And Stephon Diggs just dominated in the second half. 10 for 131 touchdown. So I think this might have been a little bit of a changing of the guard. I think Buffalo probably moves into that slot in the AFC where they're probably the top contender to the Chiefs to make it to the Super Bowl here. Just haven't liked what I've seen from Pittsburgh the last couple weeks. The defense has dropped off a little bit because they keep losing key players on defense, and it just looks like Ben, this season's starting to wear on him a bit, and he can't physically do what he needs to do to get this team into offensive sets and stuff, especially since the running game is just non-existent for them.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been really nice for the Steelers over the last few weeks, especially in primetime games. I can't really pinpoint anything in particular because, you know, we can say it's been the COVID situation, but there's been other teams that had the COVID situation also, like the Titans. And the Titans actually came out stronger after the whole fiasco, and they won quite a few games. Whereas the Steelers seem to be digressing a little bit. A lot of it has to do with, like you said, some key defensive players getting injured. But, you know, it's not good. They're starting to trend down at the wrong time. This is when you want to start kind of getting hot and, you know, getting things together as you're getting ready to get into the playoffs. I still don't think that they're done, and I still don't think that they're still, to me, like a top. It's hard. Definitely a lot harder now to say a top 2 team because, to me, the Chiefs are still number 1 in the AFC. And prior to this game, I was definitely certain that I was going to go with the Steelers with number 2, but you could definitely make an argument for Buffalo being number 2 this week. It's just like I said earlier, prior to this game, I wasn't going to take anything away from either team for this particular game because they're both good teams, and I thought it'd be a tough one. It was basically a one-score game pretty much to the end, so I'm not going to take anything away from Buffalo. I mean, from Pittsburgh, but I'm definitely going to give props to Buffalo for coming out, and Josh Allen looked really good, and he pretty much took that game. So
yeah, the thing that impressed me about Buffalo, this was a bad weather game. It was sort of a icy rain mix in cold weather, and they were able to find their way and put up some offensive numbers, especially in that second half. And if they can do that, this in bad weather situations, this team becomes more and more scary. I don't know if they can quite compete with the Chiefs yet, but you know, that offense is pretty explosive. So when the Bills and the Chiefs meet, there might be some yards racked up with some really big plays in there.
yeah, I tell you this though, the Steelers really need to clean it up defensively because at the rate that they're going, I don't see them getting pretty far in the playoffs, and this might be, like you said, a Chiefs-Bills type of AFC Championship game because over the last 3 weeks, the Steelers have allowed 19, 23, and 26 points, while their offense, who was averaging 30 points per game for the first 10 games, is now at, I think, 17. So it's a little concerning.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the last game of the week. The Baltimore Ravens 47, the Cleveland Browns 42. This was a really entertaining game. Lamar Jackson, 11 of 17, 163 yards and a touchdown. He also had 9 carries, 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins, 13 for 53 and a touchdown. Gus Edwards, 7 for 49 and 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews, 5 of 78. Baker Mayfield again played, I thought, a pretty solid game, 28 of 47, 343, 2 touchdowns. Nick Chubb, 17 for 82, 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt, 6 for 33 and a touchdown. He also had 6 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Just a really good game. I thought Cleveland played a really good game. This was probably, I think I got more respect for them in this game than the Titans game. They showed they could play with 2 of the playoff teams in the last 2 weeks, so I'm not quite as down as them. Baltimore puts himself right back in this playoff picture, and it looks like they've decided to go back to last year's offense. They pounded the rock, ran Lamar Jackson. It looks like be damned this pocket stuff. We're pounding the ball, we're running the ball, we're controlling these games now.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember early on in the season, I brought up the fact that they probably had to go back to their offense from last season. Early on in the season, they were definitely trying to stay away from it, and we understand why. They're trying to keep their quarterback healthy. But as tight as this race has gotten for them, it's win now or basically you're out. So they have to win these games. So they're going all out, and they're proving it by completely changing the type of offense that they're running. But I think this game's mostly about Cleveland. I've been trash talking them, for the last few weeks, thinking that they really weren't as good as the record showed. But they've hung in there with some playoff teams and, some of the better playoff teams like the Titans and Baltimore. So, I tip my hat off to them. They played a really good game, and they could have very easily won that game if it wasn't for a few mistakes here and there.
Yeah, definitely. The Ravens don't have a ton of margin for error here. Do you think they end up in the playoffs here?
I still think that they're good enough to get in. Granted, they're
get the phones, everyone.
They're gonna. Whoa! Keep the sponsors till after the show, buddy.
I got a pop up.
Hold on, man. We can't have sponsors like in the middle of a conversation. We'll pause for our sponsors later on.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving Samsung free advertising. They need to pay me for it.
Yeah, but I really think that Baltimore is just a really good team. I think that even though they lack some weapons on the wide receiver, they had a lot of drops still in this game. And I think that if they didn't have that many drops, it probably wouldn't have been as close. But the receivers did step up when they needed to. So if they can continue to do that and continue to, run the ball with their quarterback and their running backs, then I think that they're in good shape to sneak in, maybe with that last seed.
Yeah, well, here's what scares me about the Dolphins losing that spot. The Ravens closing schedule: Jacksonville, Giants, Cincinnati. I find it hard-pressed that a hard-playing Baltimore Ravens team would lose any of those games.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like it's going to be their playoff spot to lose. But then again, this is the NFL, man. Crazy things happen. I'm not going to count anybody out. But I do think that Baltimore definitely holds the keys to that last playoff spot.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our
You had one hell of a game.
best of the week. All right, where are we going on your offensive side of the ball, your best of the week?
Let's see. Let me grab my little handy-dandy list here. Okay, for best of the week on offense, I almost went with Drew Lock out of Denver. After you basically put him on
We
your
don't allow
Gonzo
that.
list.
He's not allowed to.
Oh, listen, I almost put him on there. He went out and he had an efficient one, 21 of 27 for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns. But I decided to go with King Henry, who had another monster game with 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. He put the team on his back, and he won a game that they were supposed to win. And it was a really important game for them because it's put them back into the hunt of possibly winning that division. So my player of the week offensive is King Henry.
Well, we have the same one. I have Derrick Henry. I have a co-one, though. I also have Lamar Jackson in there. He put them on his back and carried them to a win, and then drove them down there for the game-winning field goal with about 50 seconds left. So co-offensive players of the week for me, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. All right, where are you going defensive side of the ball?
Let's see. On the defensive side of the ball, I am going with Chase Young, the young defensive end out of Washington. He had a really good game, man. I believe he had 6 tackles. He had 1 sack, a couple quarterback hits,
and a touchdown, his first touchdown.
His first touchdown of his career. Yeah. Right now he's on pace, I believe, to, in my opinion, at least to be the defensive rookie of the year. So I thought that he's been playing pretty good all season long, but over the last few weeks he's really turned it on. So I thought that I'd give him a shout out. So Chase Young, you are my defensive player of the week.
Yeah, I also had Chase Young as my defensive player of the week. So we're on the same league here. Where are you going for the coach?
For coach, talked about him a few weeks ago, and I'm bringing him up again. Coach Sean McDermott from Buffalo. They went up against Goliath and they made sure that they brought their slingshot with them because they really handed it to them in a game where we thought that they probably have a tough time because of the elements. They came out and said, "What are you talking about, dome team? We're not a dome team. We're an all-weather team, baby." And Josh Allen really put it out there, man. He slugged the ball, he ran the ball, he did everything he had to do to get a win against a really tough team that at one point was considered to be the cream of the crop.
Yeah. I'm going a little weird this week. I'm just going with Andy Reid. I don't think we've made Andy Reid our coach of the week pretty much all year long because the Chiefs are good. But the Chiefs haven't always been good. They've been good essentially since Andy Reid has gotten there. And I feel like, every once in a while we have to be like, Andy Reid is a good coach. This team is 12-1 because Andy Reid is just got them there. He was able to do it with the Eagles, win consistently. He moved to the Chiefs. They win consistently. So I just wanted to, give Andy Reid a shout out here since, we just don't ever mention him. We always find, one of those teams that we don't think are, one of the big giants of the league. So Andy Reid, coach of the week for me.
That's a really good pick. And even though Andy Reid hasn't really been mentioned by me a lot, I think he's probably been mentioned once as far as my coach of the week. But, end of the year awards, man, he might come up then.
All right. End of the year awards. All right. Are you ready to get into our
Terrible. Just terrible.
our worst of the week?
Yes, let's do this.
All right. Where are you going for offensive player on worst of the week?
Okay, so I know that he doesn't really qualify, but I'm still going to go with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. And that's simply because even though we were contemplating why the coach would even consider bringing in Hurts, especially when they were in a position to possibly win that division, still make it to the playoffs, they made the switch, and he was a spark plug. He came out and he really empowered that offense. And it seems like even the running backs were able to drink a little bit of that Hurt juice, and they seem to be running the ball with a lot more force. And overall, the whole team played better, and it showed. It's evident by that big win against what a lot of people consider to be the number one team in the NFC.
Yeah. I'll have a fun one for worst of the week this week. Dan Bailey, be better at your job. You're a professional. Let's make an extra point in the 36-yard kick here.
10 points, buddy. 10 points he missed out on. Oh.
I'm not even counting last week's terrible display. So, Dan Bailey, worst of the week for me. All right, where are you going for defense?
For worst of the week on defense, I am going with the Panthers. Basically because they let, Locke look like the second coming of Joe Montana or Elway, if you want to stick to that team. But, I don't think that the quarterback is really all that great. But he came out, he was super efficient. Like I said earlier, he threw for 4 touchdowns and, over 200 and some yards. So I feel like the entire unit of Carolina has been a letdown over the last few weeks. And that's why they're on my list for worst of the week.
Well, we were on the same wavelength, but I'm going with the Houston Texans defense. Whenever you let the Bears dominate you and look like an offensive juggernaut, there's a team-wide badness on that defensive side of the ball. So the Houston Texans, my defense worst of the week. All right, where are you going for coach here?
For coach, usually there's a little bit of a pattern with my picks, whether it's good or bad for the week. A lot of times whoever I pick defensively, that's who the coach is going to be also. But this week, it's not. This week, like it was a couple of weeks ago, I believe, Anthony Lynn of the Chargers. That clock management.
Going with a winner.
Oh man, even in a win, you're going to get called out as the worst coach of the week. He took over the coaching duties for special teams because he thought that they weren't playing really well, and this is what happens. They have the opportunity to get points before the half, and I don't know what they're doing. They have the quarterback out there, and then they try to bring out the kicker. There's miscommunication. I don't understand what's going on there. They've got too much talent on that team to be playing that poorly, and I think that it's become a little more evident now that a lot of it has to do with the coaching staff. So I'm going to go ahead and give Anthony Lynn my worst coach of the week.
Yeah, definitely. We haven't put him on worst coach of the week, but this 4-week run here, John Gruden, they had their team primed to get into a playoff spot. And the way they've played the last couple of weeks just is really poor. I think they've been bad both defensively and offensively. And this was sort of the last straw. They had one last chance to keep themselves alive. They had the Colts coming to them, and they just gave up 44 points to the Colts. Couldn't stop them on the ground. The offense was hot and cold. Now, some of that was Jacobs, but I think John needs to take a little of this brunt too, and not just can his defensive coordinator in the middle of a game like it's that guy's fault that they played so bad the last handful of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you're making $100 million, I think that you definitely need to take a little bit of the blame.
All right, that's our show for today. Be sure to check back with us tomorrow for the football show with Dynamite. David, we'll close out the college football season with all our conference championship game previews, plus some of our picks. And then our man, Achilles Rain, will be back with us on Thursday to do our NFL football picks. I don't know if he's seen the Los Angeles Rams spread this week, but I'm going to be very interested to see if he has the gall to take the Los Angeles Rams this week.
Listen, you know that I'm going to end up taking them, but I'll share something with you off the air a little later on.
All right. Be sure to follow our Know It All podcast. Me and Achilles Rain broke down the NBA win totals. We're starting to get into some NBA action. He'll be back on Monday to do our NBA season awards and conference and division winners. So look forward to that. Also on Friday, we'll have our movie and TV show reviews. The Drive-In Dish podcast airs every day with our college basketball picks. Soon we'll have our NBA picks. We might have our man Achilles Rain pop on there for some NBA picks as well. He's been studying hard to learn the NBA gambling scheme. I think he's going to be hot this week, these upcoming weeks in his NBA picks. All right. What do you have to plug for us?
Nothing. Just make sure you follow me on Twitter at TD Achilles. That's TDACHILLES, because we might have some things in store coming up, maybe a few giveaways here and there. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you follow. Make sure you share.
I am GLN Champ 5 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find all our stuff at greenlightnetwork.org. That's our show, and we're out.